When I walked into my parents' house, I froze. My mother's voice drifted from the dining room, calm, almost proud. My sister's kids eat first, and Selena's boys can wait for the crumbs. My sibling laughed. My father didn't even look up Dot in the corner. My children sat with empty plates balanced on their knees, trying to act like they weren't hungry. My chest tightened. Inside, everything went still. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I simply took my boys and walked out. They had no idea that by pushing my children to the edge, they were pushing themselves somewhere far worse. Yes, I am Selena. And if I'm honest, that dinner didn't appear from nowhere. It was the loudest, most undeniable moment of a pattern that began years before Jalen and Theo were born, when I was 17. Working my first part-time job, my mother, Ellen, always sounding one step away from a crisis, asked if I could help with groceries. My father, Harold, practical to the point of coldness, said it would teach responsibility. 20 here, 50 there. Giving became a reflex, a habit, then an obligation up by college. They were sending me photos of Bill's repair bills. When I call, my mother's voice would quiver in all the right places. I didn't see it then, but looking back, it was choreography perfectly timed. When I graduated and landed my first full-time job, the requests changed tone. They stopped asking, "Can you help?" and became, "We really need you." Dental work for my father, a broken appliance, a car issue. It always arrived as an emergency, always aligned with the week my paycheck hit. Vanessa, my older sibling, was the one they bragged about. Her kids, Lily and Caleb, were always invited, always praised, always positioned at the center. When her car broke down, I paid for repairs. When she needed help with insurance, I covered it. I told myself it was temporary. Family helps family, right? When I married Darajance, a patient, steady man who saw more than I did, the imbalance sharpened. He would ask, "Do they ever offer to help us?" I would laugh it off. But at every holiday, every celebration, the seating arrangements and the small distances told a story. Darius would step back in conversations as if he already understood he wasn't included. When Jalen was born, my mother held him like he was fragile, glass hesitant, unsure where he fit. When Theo arrived 2 years later, my father's eyes flickered with the same hesitation. I blamed exhaustion, stress, anything but prejudice. But children feel what adults ignore. Jalen learned early that his cousins got the first turn, the best toys, the biggest slices. Theo picked up on how Lily and Caleb sat near the adults while he and Jalen were directed to play in the other room. The money requests never stopped. They grew. Mortgage help, medical bills, a roof repair. Every temporary message came with a note, "Family helps family." Every time I said yes, I believed generosity would bridge the emotional divide. It never did. So when I walked into that dining room and saw my boys in the corner with empty plates, it wasn't just shock. It was recognition. I had been funding a hierarchy that pushed my children to the edges. I had been financing a family that saw my boys as crumbs, not kin. Watching Lily and Caleb take second servings while my children stared at nothing, I finally understood. This wasn't a slip. This was the system, and I helped build it without seeing it clearly. That realization settled in my bones. Something else rose with it, a quiet, absolute resolve. I wasn't going to let them overlook my sons ever again that evening. When I returned to my parents' house, the calm inside felt empty, not peaceful. From the hallway, I heard my mother again, explaining it away. My sister's kids eat first. Selena's boys can wait for the crumbs. It's only practical. Vanessa laughed. "It's better they get used to it now," she said. "They were born to live off what's left." Harold closed the circle. They need to learn their place. That's just how things are. I moved before they noticed I was standing in the doorway. In the warm light, I could see everything clearly. Lily and Caleb finishing their second servings, comfortable at the table. Jalen and Theo hovered by the doorway, as if waiting for permission to exist. Jalen met my eyes for half a second. In that look, something fractured. He wasn't confused anymore. He understood. He understood exactly where the adults had placed him. That was the moment. Not the crumbs, not the empty plates, not the laughter. It was the look on my child's face, the quiet shrinking acceptance that rewired something in me. Nothing I said inside that house would change them. Words wouldn't fix this. Systems can be dismantled. Support can be withdrawn. After years of paying for their comfort, I held the one lever they never expected me to pull. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. I placed my hand on each of my boys' backs, guided them to the car, and buckled them in. The silence between us felt heavy, but I kept breathing steady for their sake. Back home, Darius opened the door before I touched my keys. He didn't ask what happened. He simply said, "Let's get them settled first." He helped Jalen find his sketchbook and guided Theo to the couch with his favorite nature documentary. Only when the boys were busy did he return to the kitchen and wait for me to speak. My mother said the cousins eat first. I whispered, "My boys should wait for the crumbs." Darius's jaw shifted, but he stayed calm. "You've been supporting that entire household for years," he said softly. "Bills, repairs, payments. You've never asked what any of that has cost you, not in money, but in dignity." I wanted to defend them the way I always had. The truth had been sitting in my throat since Jalen's look. "They don't see our sons as family," Darius continued. "They see them as a complication, and you as the solution they can drain without gratitude." The silence that settled then wasn't defeat. It was clarity. He reached across the table and took my hand. "What do you want to do?" he asked. The quiet plan began. I pulled out a legal pad and my laptop. I drew 4 columns: mortgage, auto, utilities, emergencies. I opened the banking app I'd avoided and scrolled through transfers, payments, tagged just until we're caught up. "We're short this month, temporary. Dates, amounts." The pad filled faster than I expected. 8 years of structured, steady support. They built their lives around my income and their arrogance on it too. We made a list. First, call the mortgage company. As a co-borrower, what were my options for removal, refinancing, or sell-off if they couldn't meet the numbers? Second, call the auto lender and require my authorization for any credit adjustments tied to my co-signature. Third, utilities and recurring payments I'd set up during so-called emergencies canceled. Fourth, the savings transfers I created as a cushion deleted. Fifth, contact my accountant for a full audit of personal support over the past 8 years. Sixth, consult a family lawyer, not for lawsuits, but for clarity, boundaries, and documentation. Every step was quiet, no grand announcements, no confrontation, just removal and an ending of access. Around 2 a.m, after the last account was adjusted, I closed my laptop and set my pen down. Darius placed a mug of warm tea beside me as an anchor. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "I feel awake." There was no satisfaction yet, just a cold steadiness I hadn't known before. My silence that night, walking out without pleading, was the first act of power I'd taken in years. The blueprint on that legal pad made it permanent. Every unchecked box on the family's budget, every deposit they'd expected, every bill with my name would hit them like a winter storm, not for revenge, but for protection, for my sons, my home, and for the part of me that remembered what crumbs tasted like. 48 hours later, the first sign my silence had reached them arrived with a phone call. Harold, the man who rarely called unless a payment was late, said, "Selena, there seems to be an issue with the mortgage." The transfer didn't go through. "I canceled it," I replied. The pause on his end cut through certainty. You canceled it? Before he could respond, Vanessa called, already spiraling. Selena, my car payment bounced. You blocked adjustments? You'll have to manage, I said, the way you expect my sons to manage with scraps. My mother FaceTimed, panic making her voice thin. Sweetheart, your father and I need to talk. The bills are piling up. We're in a difficult situation. You depended on that support, I said calmly. No more. The mortgage help is gone. The automatic transfers are gone. The co-signing access is locked. From now on, you live on your income like every other adult. You're punishing us, she whispered. I'm not punishing you, I replied. I'm stopping what you were doing to my children. Her expression cracked confusion, then fear. There were no raised voices from me. No begging. I simply laid out the truth in the same steady tone they'd used while ranking grandchildren by normalcy. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix the fallout. They were. Desperation rose in their voices, the same hollow feeling my sons had sat with in that corner. Only this time, the emptiness was in bank accounts and plans, not on my children's laps. The hierarchy collapsed exactly where it had been built, on the foundation of my silence. And that silence was gone. In the weeks that followed, the fallout settled quietly. No dramatic confrontations. No midnight arrivals. My parents moved into a modest apartment across town. Vanessa picked up extra shifts to cover payments she'd assumed I'd manage. But in my home, the air felt lighter. Jalen, my thoughtful 8-year-old, started taking the main seat at our dinner table, the one he used to avoid. Theo began talking more, asking questions, telling stories, laughing louder than he ever had at my parents' house. One evening, as I washed dishes, I watched them through the doorway. They weren't waiting for permission. They weren't checking adults' faces for approval. They simply existed comfortable, visible, whole. Darius stood beside me drying plates. You seem quieter, he said. I'm not quiet, I answered. Unsettled. The quiet wasn't emptiness anymore. It was space to think, to breathe, to let my children know their worth wasn't measured by someone else's hierarchy. I didn't feel triumphant or vengeful. I felt aligned with myself, with my boys, and with boundaries I should have drawn years ago. What they lost was comfort. What I gained was clarity. It wasn't the money I took back that changed everything. It was the space I reclaimed. The day my parents taught my sons they were meant for crumbs was the day I stopped feeding a system that starved them. My boys don't sit in corners anymore. I will never apologize for choosing their worth over anyone's comfort, not even my own parents'. If this story resonates with you, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and share your own boundary setting moment below. Your voice might be the spark someone else needs.